So I was recently browsing Petapixel and I came across this image by a Hungarian photographer whose name I just cannot pronounce, but I'm going to pop it on the screen. And this picture won the Close-Up Photographer of the Year, and it's an impressive picture in its own right. But what was really impressive about this image is taken on a GoPro. And that's always a huge conversation in photography, is whether gear matters or not. And I saw this image and thought to myself, I mean, I've got a GoPro. See? Look. And I thought, well, I wonder what kind of images I can get. Can I get anything different? Can I get anything more unique than usual if I use this to shoot rather than my DSLR? So I thought I'd get out into the mountains and give it a go. Right, I feel like to make the GoPro work for me today, I have to use it in a slightly different way from what I'd use a normal camera. And one of the main benefits of the GoPro would probably be its compact form factor, meaning hopefully I can fit it in some places that I wouldn't be able to fit my larger camera. So to test that theory out, I have come down to Policeman's Creek. You can see the Three Sisters just behind me here. We're just in Canmore. And my hope is here that as the river's dropped, it's left all these kind of cracked ice along the edge. And I'm hoping I can find a nice little area to pop the GoPro into, slide it really far back and get a kind of more unique perspective that I wouldn't get with my larger camera. Let's see if we can get some award-winning shots. So what I'm thinking is maybe I can slide it right back into somewhere here, and then maybe you can see the Three Sisters in the background there. The thing is, I can't really see what I'm doing at all. Yeah, I mean, at first things weren't looking super promising. Like, not being able to see where I was pointing the camera was resulting in all sorts of wonky shots. Lots of photographs of my hands, or even images of my knees. Or even these delightful pictures of me kind of squatting and squinting in the sun. It wasn't proving to be particularly fruitful, and I don't think my chances of winning any photography competitions were particularly high. So it turns out I'm just a bit of a moron, really. I could just connect the GoPro to my phone and see exactly what I'm doing, so I'm going to do that from now on. So of course, connecting my phone to my GoPro actually allowed me to see what I was doing. I could compose images and squeeze the GoPro into tiny gaps and really take advantage of its small size. Right, got a couple of shots there, I think. But how have they turned out? I'm not sure. We will find out later on once I get those pictures back onto my computer and can have a bit more of a proper look. But I have another couple of locations in mind and another idea of how to utilize this GoPro. So one thing not to neglect with the GoPro here is that it is actually, of course, waterproof. Now, I don't have any waterproof housings for any of my larger cameras, so I'm thinking maybe I can use this to get some of those cool shots kind of half underwater and half above. But we'll have a little play, pop it in the river behind me here, and see what we can get. So I'm not going to lie, the form factor of the GoPro probably isn't perfect in this kind of scenario. I have no articulating screen, so I'm holding the camera really, really low to get it into the river, and I can't really see what I'm doing, to be honest. So it's going to take a bit of a guesswork, but hopefully I'll get some good results. I think ideally what I need to do though is I need to find a little spot where there is a more distinct or a more unique foreground just under the water to fill the bottom half of the frame, and then have the mountains up here in the background. I mean, one thing with the GoPro is because that sensor is so small, by default, you're getting quite a wide depth of field. So what I mean by that is there's not really going to be too many areas that are out of focus that you might get with an f2.8 lens on a full frame camera. So in this circumstance, that's a benefit. I can't really focus, can't really see what I'm doing. So fingers crossed, most of the image will be sharp just because the sensor is so small. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know if I'm having the best of luck with this at the moment. I think with the angle that the sun is currently at, it's casting my shadow kind of right in the field of view of the GoPro. So it's making that underwater area really dark. And the dynamic range obviously isn't very good on this really small sensor. So I'm not really getting many results. However, on the other hand, I think I do need it to be quite bright just to actually light up the foreground underneath the water. But I've got a couple of other locations in mind which might have some water, so I'm not giving up yet. So I've just made my way down to Cascade Ponds here in Banff, and now it is kind of working. The light's in my favour here, the water is really nice and clear, and also Cascade Mountain behind me here is so large in the background that I'm almost able to get some over-under shots. There's obviously still a few things with the GoPro, like it's essentially a fisheye lens, so there's a lot of distortion, but we might be able to sort some of that out in post. And because the lens is just kind of so small, it's really hard to line up that line and get it perfect. So it fits like halfway between the shot. I mean, obviously an inch up and an inch down, you're either not underwater or you're above the water entirely. So it's a little bit tricky, but I think here might be the way to go. So I've got a few different shots there now. Are any of them fantastic? No, realistically probably not. But do some of them work as a bit of an over-under shot? Yeah, maybe. And it's something a little unique and something that I haven't been able to shoot before and wouldn't have been able to get without the GoPro. But let's head home, do a bit of distortion correction on some of these images and see if we've got anything good. Right, I popped a few of those images from the GoPro onto my computer, and to be honest, they've actually turned out a little bit better than I expected. Now, of course, there was a lot of distortion correction I had to do due to that kind of fisheye lens that the GoPro has. I've had to rely on some colour grading, some sharpening, as well as some AI denoise in Lightroom to kind of try and make them look a little bit better. But I have got some different shots than I would have done had I been using my normal camera. So here they are. I was actually pleasantly surprised with this under-over shot at Castle Mountain. I thought I hadn't really got anything, but this didn't turn out all that bad. The shots from Cascade Mountain, I think, don't work quite as well. But I'd say having a more defined singular rock as a foreground is probably more effective. It's just a case of getting the right composition being quite challenging with such a small camera and lens. But there is some potential here, and it's definitely going to be something I'll play around with in the future. At Policeman's Creek, the GoPro was more effective. Placing the camera deep under the ice shelf led to some pretty cool compositions. Those miniature icicles look like much larger frozen structures, and the shelf itself helps frame the three sisters in the background. Images I wouldn't have been able to get normally. Using a different, maybe even more limiting camera forced my hand into some more creative compositions. Some results were more successful than others, but I'd like to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. So I think we've answered two questions in this video. The first one is, will I be winning any photography awards? No, probably not. And especially not whilst using a GoPro. And then two, does gear matter? It's always a big question in photography, and I think the answer is yes and no. Certain bits of gear are obviously meant for certain purposes and do that job much better. And maybe if you're an incredibly talented photographer, you can get better results using worse gear. But I think in my case, I probably could have got some better images had I been using better equipment. But there you go. It was still a fun day out. Great to use something different and kind of experiment and get creative. Thanks for watching.